Hey there, it's Lenny Magill with the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop, and it's a sweet day here in Tennessee because we're about to introduce our brand of honey. We call it Full Auto Honey. Now, over the last 18 months, we have managed our hives, and we've done videos all along the way showing you how we've managed our hives, how we've grown the hives with the help of a professional beekeeper who is actually the president of the Columbia Area Beekeepers Association, which is an organization of beekeepers here in the Middle Tennessee area. And in fact, there's a whole lot of them. There's a lot of beekeepers here because the soil is so rich and so fertile that the plants and the flora are just, so incredibly fantastic that they really help produce some of the finest honey in all of America and all of the world, really. So over the past 18 months, as we've grown the hives, we've done videos all along the way. And I've got one more to show you here that is actually the harvesting process where we actually pull the honey, that's the word, pull the honey from the hives and then get it into the filtration process, and eventually we'll bottle it as you see it right here. So I found it to be truly fascinating, and I think you will too. Check this out. Hey folks, it's Lenny Magill with the GlockStore Performance and Custom Shop. We're here at the farm today, and it's a big day for us because we're about to extract or pull honey from our hives. Now we've got 3 big stacks back there, and the hives have done really, really well. And we're gonna go ahead and pull the frames out. And the frames that are basically capped, 60–70% capped with wax and there's honey inside, we're gonna take those out and actually store those, and then we're gonna later take them down to the house and extract the honey out. Is this a good time to start to harvest? That's what we're thinking about doing.
This is typically when you might pull your first honey harvest off.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you do multiple honey harvests?
I do. I'll do 4 or 5 over the length of the season. That runs all the way until almost October 1st.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's continuous honey production if there's some good nectar flow out there. And the honey changes in color and in taste throughout the season. So
that's interesting.
Typically you get a fairly light honey at this time of the year and a darker, more flavorful honey, I think, in the fall.
Which do you prefer, the fall honey?
I prefer the fall honey.
Oh, that's interesting. So each one of these boxes is called just a box?
A super, yeah, a honey super is what they call it, yes.
So, and then inside there are frames.
There are frames with wax foundation that the bees have drawn out to store the nectar in, yes.
Okay, and so each one of those boxes has how many frames in it?
9 frames.
9, and that's typical, right, for all bees, I guess.
That's what I use. It is a 10-frame box, but I found the 9-frame spacing gives you more advantages.
Okay, and so today we're going to go ahead and do our first honey pool.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what that process is and what we're going to try to accomplish. Obviously, there's a lot of honey in there, right?
We're going to start in that top box and pull 1 frame at a time, and if it's at least 60 to 70% capped, we'll pull it for extraction. If it's less than that, we'll just put it back in the hive and let the bees dehydrate the nectar a little bit more so that it's truly classified as honey. So we'll actually be reducing the size of the hives a little bit right now.
Okay, so you pull them out and then kind of pull the boxes down a little bit, so
Yes.
that each one is full, each box is full.
Yes, and come September when we get into the honey flow, the fall honey flow, if the hives are full at that point, we can add empty boxes back to store that nectar.
Okay, and so then once you pull the frames out, tell me about the process there. What are we going to do from there?
Well, we're going to take them back up to the house, and we've got the extractor set up in there and begin the process of cutting those wax cappings off of the frame and putting it in the extractor to spin it to sling the honey out of the comb.
So with centrifugal force, gravity, it kind of throws it out, and then it gets collected, and then the honey is kind of in its raw state, in a sense.
It's very raw. It has to be filtered, yes.
Right. And so why do you filter it? What's going on there?
Well, because you're going to have a lot of pieces of wax. You may have a bee or 2 or something else. Who knows?
Bee legs, bee
legs,
bee wings,
bugs,
all kinds of stuff.
A fly that came along or something,
So honey is pretty viscous. How do you filter it?
We have 2 sets of filters. We use a coarse filter today just to get all of the coarse materials out. And then whenever this honey's bottled, we'll go through an extremely fine filter to trap any sediment that's left.
Now, I've heard and I've read and I think people are aware that there are some health advantages of eating local honey for your immune system and such.
Typically, the local pollens will help reduce your allergen reactions. Yes.
Right. So it's actually a good idea to eat local honey in your local area.
Correct, yeah. And that local area can be extensive. You could go to the Kentucky border north or the Alabama border south. Basically, we have the same floral sources. So it doesn't have to be specifically within 2 miles or anything like that.
Well, that's really interesting. So, and then once the honey is then filtered, you've got a big jar of it, I guess, right? And then you can repackage it from there.
We're going into 5-gallon pails, and from there, we'll repackage it.
Excellent. Okay, good. So what's the first step?
Well, Scott and I are going to go over here and start on the far hive and do it first, and then work back to the near hive.
Okay, so when you take those frames out, you just kind of put them in these plastic bins you have back there, right?
I'm going to hand him the frames that are extractable, and he'll brush the bees off and store them in the boxes.
And then we take them down to the house.
Down to the house. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. And
Okay.
Good luck, Scott.
Let's do it. All right, you can see that's almost 100% capped on both sides. So that's a great frame of honey right there.
That's a beautiful thing. Look at that. Let me see, Scott. My goodness, brushing the bees off ever so lightly.
Why don't you just hold that for him?
That's
He's
what I'll
gonna
do.
Put that in the box.
Oh, these are,
Okay.
so these are kind of heavy, right? So each one of these things weighs 3 or 4 pounds, right?
A full one will have 4.5 pounds of honey in it. Yes.
That's interesting. And then there's 9 times 4, so they say 30 pounds a box. Got to get a shot of my cameraman. There he is in the moon suit. So how many bees do you think are in a hive?
This hive could have 20 to 30,000 bees in it.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So you just like to shake them off at least, huh?
Yeah. Keep them home as much as possible.
All right. Now, when they go out, do they know which hive is theirs?
Oh, absolutely. They do.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Okay, now below this box is the brood section of the hive. And typically there might be a couple of frames on the sides here that could be filled out and capped well enough that we could pull.
So the brood section is where they actually are doing the little babies, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
That one is drawn out so far that
Hard to get out.
hard to get out without breaking some of the cells open. So we'll just lay this aside and that one's
So now you're replacing the frame, so you have a
right. We
A
have
full
to fill
box.
that back up.
yeah.
If we don't, they will build comb where you don't want it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So they'll actually build around it and kind of interfere
all
with
over the place.
Yeah. That's,
Crosswise. And okay, so we're going to fill this box back up since we'll be removing. We'll take the fullest frames and put them right in here.
Pretty heavy one right there. That's all.
Yep.
Just lacks a little bit of capping.
I think I'm going to do a little smoke. There's pine needles in there that once the top is closed and there's a restricted air supply, we'll get a little more smoke. It's a natural phenomenon for bees to suspect a forest fire when you smoke them, and they tend to go and start sucking up a lot of honey because they think they might have to flee the hive.
oh, that's interesting.
So if they have to flee, they want to be well fed.
Look at that. That's a good looking one, huh?
This is an almost perfect frame.
Wow, look at that one.
Yes. You can look at that end view, you can see how much that sticks out beyond the frame. That makes it so easy to cap it,
Yeah.
decap it. They're still working on these cells, dehydrating that nectar to try to reduce it down to 18% moisture. And just about the time it gets there, then they cap it over. Now about, I'd say 15% of the honey by volume in these frames may end up in these cappings.
That's interesting. So
And
even
you've got it then.
so there's the honey that's just in the actual wax,
Yes.
and so you capture that as well.
Okay, let's put this in here. Now,
So how long does this process typically take?
I'd say a better part of 2 hours to do this many frames.
Well, how about these three? I mean,
Well, we'll just spin it about 30 seconds at a fairly slow speed. It's starting to spit out onto the inside, and it'll take a little bit for the volume to build up in there before it starts draining.
so here it comes.
There comes some honey and wax. So I'm going to flip these over.
Well, it's flowing now.
I'll speed that up a little more.
Okay, now, just to recap, the Full Auto Honey, it's available now at the retail store here in Nashville, as well as on our website. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is this is the June 2021 harvest. It's a small batch. We don't have a whole lot, probably 300-400 bottles. But notice how clear and light it is. And that is indicative of a spring harvest. So in the fall, it'll be a little bit darker. But I'm gonna tell you right now, this is probably some of the cleanest, sweetest honey that I've ever had. Now, it's not too sweet, which is really interesting because it has a sweetness that's unlike the stuff you buy in the store, especially with all the big commercial brands, because they like to cut that with some sugar, to be honest, to make it even sweeter. This is pure, it's raw, it's filtered, and it's, like we said, a small batch. I just think you're gonna find it to be fantastic. It's available now on our website and, of course, here in the Nashville store. I like it so much, I just wanna make sure that you have a taste of Tennessee. Thanks for watching. I'm Lenny Magill. We'll see you next time.